Lion face. Lemon face. Ooh.
Welcome back to Hometown TCG, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John.
And I'm Josh.
And today we're continuing our series that you've been asking for. You've been asking for ways to deal with specific heroes, and today we're looking at Ira.
Exactly. But before we get into Ira, again, big shout out to you guys. You guys have blown up our channel. We are celebrating with a live stream Tuesday, June 22nd at 7 p.m. Guys, we're answering your questions. We're going live. We're hanging out. We're giving away Monarch Unlimited.
That's right.
It's going to be an absolute blast. We will see you there.
All right, so let's get into Ira. So we want to know what a character is trying to do if we want to know how to beat her. So Ira is a classic mid-range type deck where she can block and she can attack and she can kind of shift between the two, but ideally she's blocking two and attacking with two, right?
Exactly. Those are the two big points of any Ira build, or what makes her a menace, right? Is she's so consistent and she plays so well with two cards hand. So just like you said, she can block with two, play with two. It's almost impossible to outvalue her in a limited card game.
Exactly. Another thing I would say is that she's great in the late game. Her Kodachis are just so hot. You can't deal with them because you're not going to waste an entire card to block one damage.
Exactly. So the late game, or closeout phase as we've come to call it, she really shines. You start having to block 1 to 2 damage. She can pressure 3 or 4 attacks a turn. It gets overwhelming. You almost can't stop her. But don't be confused. She also has that explosive potential. She can come at you with some really powerful hit effects, some go again, some buff command and conquers as the second attack, maybe off a 2-card hand.
Yeah, E-strike into command and conquer.
E-strike into command and conquer, yes. She can do so much. So while she's consistent, she can be explosive. So the deck's a problem.
So let's look at a traditional line of play from her is that she's going to pitch a blue and do Kodachi, and thing.
Something, right? Third thing.
Right, a torrent of tempo, or an E-strike.
An E-strike for 7. Maybe something with go again, maybe a soul bead strike or a leg tap into something else if she's able to keep more resources into her hand, right? So she's got these lines of play that can grow and grow and grow, and all of that is threatening Mask of Momentum, right?
Yes, so that's the big thing she can do is you kind of have to block something in that chain, otherwise she draws a card and continue to
kind of put the pressure on.
Yeah.
Exactly. So while that chain might not put out as much damage as we've seen, especially in the more recent meta, the threat of the drawing a card, the threat of the constant go again can be overwhelming. But on the other side, on the defensive end, she also has a really common line of play where it's flick flack to block your first thing into a combo card to block for 5 on your second thing to get a lot of value out of 2 cards.
Right, and that can block for...
You can get 9 block
out of 2 cards, or a yellow one, 8 block.
Exactly. So she can get a lot of value on the defensive end. You let her keep a full hand, she can be explosive. With a half hand, she still gets a lot of value. I mean, she's a menace. She's got a lot of lines to play.
She does a lot of things well, but it's not completely hopeless. There are ways to beat her.
Yes, there are ways to beat her, and we've come across a couple things that we think are essential if you are going to take down those Ira players at your armory. And the first one is, you have to remember, you can take advantage of her weak armor. She doesn't really have a powerful armor suite, right?
That's right. And it can lead to having a big hit effect that you can dominate or something can go over the top against her, and she just won't be able to block it because she doesn't have the armor for it.
Exactly. So you can pressure cards out of her hand. Now, sometimes she wants those cards out of her hand, but in some certain scenarios she doesn't. So you can pressure those cards using her weak armor. And then finally, we've seen people, and we've had a lot of success with like big OTK or big kind of combo high damage turn decks into her.
Yes, you have to do something that is going to get all of the cards out of her hand and push through damage. You have to set up for these giant turns, huge 5-card hands, or just complete OTK strategy.
Exactly. So OTK, or as we call it, go extra tall, right?
Yes,
extra over the top. You got to go Josh tall on this one. You got to go extra tall. But while you're doing that, there are some big traps and kind of no-no scenarios you can fall into while playing against her. And again, it's such a finite matchup, and she's so powerful. If you fail at any one of these, you're probably at risk for losing the game. And the biggest one is going to be that Mask of Momentum trigger, right? The 3 attacks in a row on the combat chain hitting, triggering that draw a card effect with the ability to have go again, the ability to do something else, arsenal a card, get more value. That's a problem.
You know that she's going to be hitting you with 3 attacks a turn.
At
so
least.
you have to block one of them. All right? If you're only piece of armor is a 1-block armor, maybe you can block the first, but the general strategy is you block the second Kodachi that comes in.
Yes, that's a generally accepted method. You take one on the chin, you block for 2 there, and then maybe if you decide you want to keep the rest of your hand to try to go off to pressure, it can get dangerous if you don't. And then, again, on the other side of the game, she's got value, or she's got a pitfall or a trap you can fall into if you let her get too much value out of Flick Flacks, right?
Oh, yeah. So if she hits you with the Flick Flack and then you do a 5 damage attack to follow it up, it just feels...
She's going to block it for 5 with 1 card.
It's so bad. But if you follow it up with a 1, 2, 3 damage attack, it almost feels like she wastes it.
Yes.
So if you have a way to string together 3 attacks and she goes Flick Flack on the first and your second one you can do is really weak...
Tiny
Make
attack.
her waste the value of that and then hit with a bigger third attack.
Such a small attack on the second one, exactly. And the third attack, nice big attack. So, those are 2 ways that we've seen people kind of drop the ball, I guess, against Ira. A third, I think, would be just the general misuse of the arsenal, right? Getting something stuck in there that maybe you can't use, not arsenaling something that's important if you're going for that big turn, the go extra tall or the OTK strat. You got to keep something very valuable and important in that arsenal.
We talk about aggressively arsenaling, and that's just a way to put a key combo piece into your arsenal so that when you get your ideal hand, you can go off for something that she can't block. You don't want to just put something random in there. You want to put something that's going to help you go over the top of her defenses.
Exactly, and if you do get something random in there, it's valuable to get it out ASAP so you can put something valuable in that arsenal. And the last kind of pitfall or trap that we see people fall into is getting into that low life type game, thinking you're in it. You know, I'm at 3 life and my opponent's at 2. I think I'm in it. In an Ira matchup, you're not in that game. So many things are blowouts. Razor Reflex, Sigil of Solace, second Kodachi. It's all a blowout at that point.
In a 3 life, if you have 3 life left, you have 3 turns left. And they're just blocking and doing Kodachis, and you're going to die.
Exactly. Because you're taking that first Kodachi. So guys, don't fall into that trap thinking if you're close in life and you're both low, it's not a real game anymore. You've bit the farm. Bought the farm. You've bit the dust. You've bought it all. You're loose into Ira. So that kind of brings us into ways that we've had success against Ira, right? Ways that we've avoided biting the proverbial farm.
Yes.
So what are some ways that you've seen big success against Ira?
The biggest one we've talked about already, about like the arsenal or something. It's just having these huge, gigantic turns because she doesn't have the armor. And if you can force all the cards out of her hand and do extra damage, you're in a pretty good situation.
Exactly. Now, we've got a couple strategies that we're going to talk about later on this channel, probably after some skirmish games, to give you guys ways to get these gigantic turns off. But there is another strategy that we've talked about, and that's kind of with the ban of Drone of Brutality. You can get her into a weakened state using Fatigue. As we said, Ira wants to pitch that blue early, and if you can draw that game out and keep your life high enough, all those blues she's pitching in a row are going to come back around, and she's not going to have a lot of power left in that deck. And that's your time to shine. That's when you can really take over.
So if you get into the late game and you're low life, we've already said you're going to lose because she can ping for the damage. But if you have enough life as a buffer there, you can take her attacks because they'll be weaker when they're all blues, and you push out the things to finish her off.
Exactly. And the final tip that we've seen that is either we've had success or it's been success when we've made a mistake early or something or another is if Mask breaks early. The threat of Mask not being there, the threat of draw a card not being there, really helps against the Ira player.
Again, when you have high life, if you can force her with the hit effect to do that, you're in a great situation because you don't have to block those Kodachis.
Exactly. So we know, guys, this deck has been a menace. Guys, we've played this deck. We've played against this deck. It can be a stressful time, but it is beatable, but you must be on your A game. Is there any final points you want to close with on Ira?
No, it's just you have to be strategic and you have to make every single move count against Ira because it's the little things that add up with her.
Exactly. So again, guys, we appreciate you guys. This has been super fun. Tuesday, June 22nd, 7 p.m. Gigantic announcement. Trying to help you guys with a big comment we've gotten in our comment section. Let us know if you've beaten any Ira decks, if they're taking you down, how your Ira matchup is going. And until next time, my name is Josh.
And I'm John.
And we'll see you around.